Yo, what's up guys, it's Happy Snail. Today I'm going to be rating Michael B. Jordan, of course using FaceIQ, Frost, his new tool, FaceIQ Labs. And yeah, let's get into it. So Michael B. Jordan's front profile gets a 5.67 out of 10, and his side gets a 2.08 out of 10, which is pretty surprising to some people. And of course, this isn't his final rating. I'm going to show his final rating at the end of the video with his dimorphism, miscellaneous features, and body fat factored in on top of his harmony. But solely focusing on harmony, his side profile scores a 2 and his front profile scores roughly a 5.7. So that might be surprising to a lot of you because Michael B. Jordan is considered a highly attractive actor amongst many women and many men. A lot of people consider him attractive. And I think this is due to multiple things. I think it's due to his dimorphism, and I also think it's due to his teeth halo. When this guy's talking, he looks a lot more attractive. Because if I showed you this photo of him right here, and this was the first time I ever saw him, you'd think he's some normal dude. But then when you see him talking, moving around in the film, there's some charisma going on due to the white teeth, due to the contrast. It boosts his miscellaneous features a lot. So yeah, let's get into the front ratios. So Michael B. Jordan's first flaw is going to be his lower third proportion. So too much of his lower third is taken up by his philtrum, which is quite a feminizing trait actually, but he kind of covers it up well with his beard, and his large lips make it a bit different because African phenotypes have larger lips typically. So stuff like this is typically less visible because the lips are taking up more of the lower third overall. But yeah, next ratio. Next ratio is going to be ipsilateral alar angle. It's an angle measured from the alar base to the lateral canthus. And as you can see, his is a bit too obtuse. It's outside the ideal. It's not too far outside the ideal, but this just indicates a more like shorter mid-face and a more like flatter midsection, or just an over flatter face overall. Next is going to be his eyebrow tilt. As you can see, his eyebrows are not tilted enough. If anything, they're nearly negative, but yeah, just barely positively tilted. So yeah, he would benefit with some eyebrow tilt. And as well as his eyebrow low settedness, his eyebrows are high set, as you can see. So yeah, that's another flaw of his. Next, for his cheekbone height, he has low set cheekbones. His cheekbones go up 70% the height of his mid-face, which is unideal. As you can see on this curve over here, it falls out of the ideal range. And typically, you want your cheekbones to go up 81 to 100% of the height of your mid-face. You want them to be like around your eyes, which indicates high set cheekbones and good under-eye support. His under-eye support isn't actually bad. He has some good fat there. As you can see, he has some agiocell, and his eyelids look pretty healthy, actually. So yeah. Next is going to be the deviation of his ipsilateral alar angle and his jaw frontal angle. So we went over the ipsilateral alar angle, but here's the deviation between that and the jaw frontal angle. So typically you want these two angles to be the same for a harmonious front profile. But as you can see, there's a 9-degree deviation between the two, which is unideal. Next is going to be his bigonial width. I'm actually surprised he fails on this. Honestly, I wouldn't really say it's that bad, like dimorphism-wise and attractiveness-wise, but his jaw is 97% the width of his cheekbones, which if you guys didn't know, you typically want it to be from 86 to 92% the width of your cheekbones. This isn't a crazy flaw, even though it deviates quite a bit, because this is still a dimorphic trait, and as you can see, it looks pretty good on him, I would say. But yeah, next ratio. Next is going to be his facial width height ratio. So even though Michael B. Jordan has a rather compact face and a dominant face shape, his high-set eyebrows make the height of his mid-face longer and less dominant. So typically, you'd think that he would have a more compact facial width height ratio, but due to his eyebrows being up here, it lengthens the appearance of his midsection of his face. So it is less dominant, and it is a flaw. So yeah, typically you want this blue line right here, your bizygomatic width, to be 1.96 to 2.12 times longer than the height of your mid-face. And the height of his mid-face would be shorter if the brows were lower. Next is going to be his lower third height. Honestly, this is not a crazy flaw, and I think on African phenotypes it looks pretty good, as you can see here, displayed here. And he doesn't score too bad for it, it's just 3 points off. But yeah, his lower third is 40% the height of his total face, which, if it weren't for the point above his what's it called, hairline, it would be a lot more apparent that his jaw is almost half of his entire face, his front profile, which is, or his lower third is, sorry, which is a bit too much, but as you can see, it's fairly dimorphic, and it doesn't fall too far out the ideal range, so it's not too big of a flaw. Next is going to be neck width. I think that this photo is a bit skewed, or maybe it's because his jaw is very wide. But yeah, his neck width is outside the ideal. You typically want it from 90 to 100% the width of your jaw, but his is 85% the width of his jaw. Next is going to be his mid-face ratio. Now, on African American people, you typically want a more compact mid-face ratio because they typically have more shorter maxillas. And that's the case with Michael B. Jordan, but his is overly compact. This could also be due to his wider set ESR accompanying it, but that's also a typical African American trait. So yeah, his mid-face ratio is quite frankly just overly compact, and he would benefit from some elongation of the mid-face because his lower third, as I said earlier, was too long. Next is going to be his canthal tilt. We're getting into the more ideal ranges here. Honestly, I wouldn't really consider this a flaw. I could see how his eyes would benefit from some more canthal tilt, but I feel like some tightening of the lower eyelids would give the same impression ultimately. But yeah, his canthal tilt is 5.6 degrees, and typically you'd want this to be from 6.7 to 9.4 degrees, which is just right outside the ideal range. Now for his one eye apart test. Typically you want your eyes to be 0.96 to 1.07 eyes apart, but his eyes are 1.09 eyes apart, which for African American people, it's very typical to have farther apart set eyes. This is actually a very common trait of a shorter maxilla, wider set eyes, I've noticed, and that's common amongst African American people, so it's acceptable, but then again, his does fall a bit too far out of the ideal range. Next is going to be his mouth to nose width, another ratio that is a bit more skewed for African Americans due to their larger noses typically, and his is I'd basically give it ideal. It's basically an ideal range, you know, you could give it to him here. His mouth might even be a little bit wider than I took it, so yeah, pretty much ideal. Good nose shape. Shape is fine too though. Next will be lower lip to upper lip ratio. Pretty much ideal on African Americans. Once again, this ratio is different than the typical standard used on white people or other races due to their larger lips. The ideal range from 1.2 to 1.8x. And as you can see, he's just at 1.2. So yeah, great. He has very good full lips. Very proportionate. Don't care about that. Oh, so next thing that is great is his upper third. His upper third is perfectly sized. I'd say he has a nice forehead size. Honestly though, I feel like if you took some of his lower third and added it to his upper third, just 1% of his lower third, it would be more harmonious, I feel. And maybe elongate his middle third a little bit too. Then his middle third is also ideal. Then his total facial width height ratio is perfect. You typically want your face to be 1.33 times longer than it is wide. Or 1.33 to 1.38, sorry. So typically 1.3 to 4 is acceptable, and his is 1.35, which is just in the middle of that, so perfect. Next is going to be eye separation ratio, which is measuring the distance between your pupils and the width of your cheekbones. Actually, I was wrong about what I said earlier. I said I think his ESR would be wider. It's not. I was wrong about that. His ESR is perfect. It's 46%. That's my fault. It's because of his ICD. Made me misinterpret that. But yeah. So yeah, his pupils are 46% the width of his face, which is perfectly ideal range. Very harmonious. Next thing is going to be his chin to philtrum, which is checking if your the proportion between your chin and your philtrum, like, you know, you typically want your chin to be 2 to 2.5 times larger than your philtrum, but African American people, it's a little bit skewed. It's 2.1 to 2.6 because their lips are a bit larger. But yeah, he still gets 2.16, which is perfectly in the ideal range. It looks really good, I'd say. Maybe it might be a little bit bigger. I can't really tell with his facial hair, but if you measured it down to here because of his facial hair, it would be even more ideal. So yeah. Next is going to be his jaw frontal angle. Perfectly in the ideal range, 92 degrees, not too acute, not too obtuse. He has a very nice jaw frontal angle. Next is eye aspect ratio. So his eyes are 3.06 times wider than they are tall, which is perfectly in the ideal range. As you can see, it's very compact and balanced, very harmonious. Next is going to be his bitemporal width, just checking the width of your temples in comparison to the bizygomatic width. Very good. As you can see, he's perfectly in the middle range. Wow. So yeah, very good for him. Ears, I don't really care. All right, so let's get on to the side. Now, this is where Michael B. Jordan is going to be lacking a little bit, okay? So, I'm not even really going to go over the lip assessments too much, like what they're about here, because he just fails every single one of them. So, as you can see right here, he's 11 millimeters out, and typically you want to be 4 to 3 millimeters out, but he's 11 millimeters. Lips are sticking 11 millimeters outward from the line. So, yeah, overly protruded. 0 out of 10. Next for the birthstone line. As you can see, same protocol here. His lips should be sticking out 5 to 7 millimeters. They stick out 14 millimeters almost. For the E line, his lips should be sticking out roughly 1.5 to 2, plus or minus, and they're sticking out 9 millimeters. So yeah, that's not ideal. Yeah, and then next ratio. So this is also an ideal submental cervical line. I think I actually mistook this a little bit because of his little like gobbler he's got here. I don't know what that is, but yeah. It's unideal regardless. It's a horrible submental. I mean, literally, like, just taking a second look at that, I don't really know, yeah. Very weird submental cervical angle. That is gonial angle of 145 degrees is astounding. You want your gonial angle to be 113 to 123. 145 degrees is extremely downgrown, extremely recessed looking. So, yep. Okay, so next for his nasal width height ratio. His nose would benefit from being taller. As you can see, these lines are too close to being, like, the same. If this line was, 0.65 to 0.9 times longer than this one. His nose would be like appear slightly taller or less like just compacted. So next for facial depth height ratio. So this is basically measuring how forward grown you are, from measuring from the tragus to right here, and from measuring from the nasion to the right over here. And once you divide these lines, you typically want the blue one, the one from the tragus to here, to be 1.25 to 1.4 times longer than that line to indicate good forward growth. It would just indicate a good proportion of those two, of your mid face and your total facial like forward growth, I guess. And yeah, his face just is not forward grown enough, to be quite honest with you. He's recessed, so yeah, that's just how it is. Next is going to be his upper lip burst zone line. You typically want this to be 9 to 6 degrees out, and his is 10 degrees out, so yeah, very unideal. Overly protruding lips. Next is going to be his total facial convexity. So you'd want his chin to be more forward. It's too convex. You'd want it to be more flat. As you can see, if it were more obtuse, it would just be a little bit better. His frontal bone is good. His brows are good. His nose's projection is fine. I would say if his chin was moved forward, it would be improved. I think they should move his whole mid face forward and his lower third forward though. Yeah, like that, counterclockwise. Next for his gonian to mouth line, you want your gonian to be roughly 12 to 45 millimeters like below your mouth line, but his is too close to his mouth line, which indicates that he has a short ramus. When your gonian is right next to your mouth line, that would mean that your ramus is very short. Next is going to be his ramus to mandible ratio. As you can see, just like the previous gonian to mouth line indicated, his ramus is too short in comparison to his mandible length, as you can see. Next for his upper lip S-line position. As you can see, this is not too bad actually. It's not as bad as the other ones. It should be protruding 3 to 4 millimeters, but this one it's protruding 5.5 millimeters. Next for his nasal projection. His nose it says it's over projected. I wouldn't say it's over projected. I just would say it's not tall enough. He doesn't have enough nose bridge support. If it was more like this and he had more nose bridge support, the ratio would be improved and his nose wouldn't be marked as over projected. It's over projected definitely in comparison to his chin, but that's not what they're measuring there. So next for his nasal facial angle, this is also kind of measuring your nasal projection in comparison to your side profile. And yeah, as I said, if this was more steep, if this was more steep before, this would also fix the nasal facial angle. So yeah, that's something to consider for him. Maybe some like implant right here, some metal implant. Next for the nasommental angle, it's kind of like a convexity measurement, but measuring the convexity relative to the nose. And as you can see, it's not actually too bad. He could just benefit from a more forward chin, as I said. This measurement is a bit more generous, I'd say, on people who are recessed. But yeah, if his chin was a bit more forward, it'd be better, of course. Next for his facial convexity of his nasion. As you can see, it's not too bad. It could just be a little bit more obtuse, which would also be caused by a more forward chin. Now his mental labial, it's getting better. I mean, honestly, I would say that his mental labial is only good because of the way his chin is shaped. If his chin was actually forward, like how it's supposed to be, then his lips would mess it up. So yeah, but he still has an ideal mental labial. His nasal tip angle is good. His Frankfurt tip angle is fairly good, I'd say. Yeah, actually, if it was more measured like that and it was more open, it'd be better. So yeah, actually, I measured it. Yeah. Next, for the facial convexity of his glabella, the total convexity in relation to the glabella, just 0.2 outside the ideal. I would say it's ideal. Even if you move it a little bit forward, it's ideal. So yeah, good facial convexity. Recession relative to Frankfurt plane. Guys, surprise, surprise, Michael B. Jordan, even though he has this horrible segmental and it gives us this weird appearance, he's not recessed. So yeah, he's technically not recessed, but I'll give that up to you guys to decide. Next is going to be his brow ridge inclination angle. As you can see, the slope of his forehead or his brow ridge inclination angle, as you can see, is very good. It's in the ideal range. Next for his nasal frontal angle, this is also very, very good. Even though it's on the lower end of the ideal, I would say that you could favor even lower on this because it's very dimorphic, this part being more acute. And yeah, I'd say it looks really good on him. Next is going to be his nasolabial angle, another one that's ideal. He has a good his nose's upward tilt overall is very good. I would just say he would benefit from a stronger nose bridge. He has a good nose though for his phenotype. Next is going to be his upper lip elan position. This is the only lip assessment he actually passes because it's just measuring the upper lip, which his upper lip is better than his lower lip, of course, by a lot. His orbital vector is also pretty good because he has decent under eye support regardless of his recession and his low set cheekbones. His under eye support is still fairly good due to the fat storages. And then yeah, his nose tip rotation angle is good. So yeah, guys, overall, Michael B. Jordan mathematically gets a 4.14 out of 10. But now, factoring his other traits, let's get into his final rating. Alright, so now for Michael B. Jordan's overall scoring. So he has an overall harmony score once we average out his front and side profiles mathematical scorings of 4.14 out of 10. I'd give his angularity a 5 out of 10 because, as you can see, his side profile angularity, I mean, I wouldn't say his submental really affects his angularity because that's not really correlated to his body fat necessarily. But then again, it does affect the appearance of angularity which he displays, so it does knock him down objectively. But then again, his front profile displays good jawline visibility, and he has some nice dimples over here. And I would associate that, along with the bad side profile, with average angularity, or maybe slightly above average due to the dimples and the visible jaw, which is a 5 out of 10 in my opinion. Now for his dimorphism, even though he has a more compact midface and higher set brows and maybe some, maybe like smaller eyes, I still give him a 7 out of 10 for dimorphism. This is because of his 97% bigonial width, and maybe his neck width you could argue that his neck width brings it down to a 6.5 or 6.75, but I think a 7 is pretty appropriate considering his ratios and the overall masculine look and his facial thirds. Lastly, for his features, you could argue his features go up to a 7, maybe even lower, maybe to a 6.5, again 6.5 to 7 range, but I'm going to go for 6.75. I'd say he displays pretty good features. His skin tone is really even, really clear skin. He has full lips, he has a good nose, he has, his eyebrows could be a lot denser, his eyelashes are alright. He has good hairline, and yeah, overall he displays pretty good features and pretty good health indicators, so I would give him a 6.75 out of 10 for his features. And with all of these, with his harmony, angularity, dimorphism, and features weighted out and averaged, he gets a final score of a 5.75 out of 10, which is above average. It's fairly above average, actually. I would say it's a high mid-tier normie, but you could argue with his teeth halo and with his status halo, he's a Chadlight even, or a high tier normie with all that added, with the status halo and everything. Without the status halo, you could maybe argue high tier normie in an IRL setting, but then again, I'd still give him a mid-tier normie. If you'd like to rate your own face or analyze anybody else's face, and mathematically and just get an objective analysis out of it, use FaceIQ Labs and make sure to use code HAPPYSNAIL for 20% off. If you have anybody else you want me to measure or analyze, any new video ideas, just let me know down in the comments below. Thank you for watching.
I'ma sell her baby boy. I'm not gonna be Joe, the Joe T-Rex, my packet of 4 for 4. I'ma sell her baby boy. I'm not gonna be Joe, the Joe. I'ma sell her baby boy.